Welcome back to another episode of Eagles Latest on Fan Hearts. I'm your host, Blake McQueary. We have a lot to talk about today. Finalizing rosters is the biggest thing. So we are going to get right into it. We're not going to waste any time. The deadline was at 4 p.m. Eastern Time for rosters to be finalized today. I'm going to give you guys who I think is going to be on the final roster. There's still some uncertainty, still some reports to be made on who is going to be on the Eagles' final roster, but I think you get a pretty good look at who is going to be there after preseason, after training camp. We're going to start with quarterbacks. Obviously, Jalen Hurts is the franchise guy. He's not going anywhere. Tanner McKee is his backup. He's not going anywhere either. We know Kyle McCord was released the other day, so he's obviously not going to be there. And we do also know, if you didn't see it, then this is news for you. Sam Howell, the Minnesota Vikings' backup quarterback, the Eagles just traded for. So those are the three quarterbacks you will see on the roster for the Eagles. Moving on to the running backs room. Obviously, Saquon Barkley is going to be there. A.J. Dillon is a guy who they got from Green Bay this offseason. He's going to be there as well. I think A.J. Dillon should be running back 2, followed by Will Shipley. Will Shipley was a rookie last year, drafted out of Clemson. He's entering his second year with the Eagles. He should make some strides this year for the Philadelphia Eagles. I think he is a guy who can be a receiving back for this offense and really spread things out for them. And then I think a final guy you'll see is Ben Van Sumeren. I think they want to keep 4 running backs on roster. It's pretty good to keep four running backs on roster, especially nowadays when you see 2 guys getting the start for a lot of teams. For example, you look at the Detroit Lions with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, things like that. Obviously, the Eagles aren't going to do that. They have Saquon. They don't need to do that, but you never know with running backs who's going to be there in Week 15, who's not going to be there, things like that. And then if you look at the wide receivers room, obviously there's A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Jahan Dotson. Those 3 guys aren't going anywhere. You know that. Followed by John Mechie, a guy that I have talked about last week a lot, that the Eagles traded for out of Houston. And then you'll see Darius Cooper. I think he is going to be the final spot on the roster for the Eagles. Undrafted guy out of Tarleton State. I think they really liked him. I think what really points to him staying is the Eagles were finding things for him to do. They wanted to move him to special teams. I think you've seen a lot of that in training camp and preseason. Darius Cooper, I think, is a guy who's going to make it. Unfortunately, Anais Smith, we do know, got cut earlier this morning. It was kind of a battle between who was going to be the final spot in that wide receiver room between Darius Cooper and Anais Smith. Obviously, Cooper got the edge. Like I said, I think you've seen that with them finding spots for him in special teams. So that rounds out your wide receiver room. Obviously, Johnny Wilson stood there, but on IR, out for the year. Moving to tight ends, we got Dallas Goedert, who's not going anywhere. Then you have Grant Casalchera and Kyle Granson. I think those are 2 guys. Obviously, Casalchera will still be there. He's going to be the backup for Goddard. I think Kyle Granson is the guy that's going to be the final roster spot. I don't see them. Now, I could see Granson getting cut as well. I'm not sure what the urgency is to have 2 tight ends on that roster. I think they can get away with just having 2. I don't think they're going to need a 3rd guy. If there is going to be a 3rd guy, though, I think you'll get Kyle Granson. I can also see them cutting him and signing to the practice squad as well. That could be something that you should look out for, though. But I think those are obviously the 2 guys, Goddard and Caltera. Granson could be in the mix, could be a practice squad guy for the tight ends room. Moving to the O-line. We talked a lot about the O-line. Obviously, more reserve spots. The front 5 is kind of set. You know who's going to be on the front 5 for the Eagles. The reserves is a little shaky, like I've said in the past. I think the guys who do make it, though, aside from the 5 that you have starting, so obviously Jordan Mailata, obviously Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens, Tyler Steen, Lane Johnson. Those are your front 5. One of the best front 5s in the NFL, undoubtedly. Now, you get to the reserves. I think Matt Pryor, obviously a veteran guy who has the experience, who's been in the league. He'll be there. Drew Kendall, I think, will be there. I think they keep Trevor Keegan, obviously. I think Miles Hittens is still there. And I think Cameron Williams makes the final spot. Obviously, the two rookies that they drafted, I can see them keeping. Darian Kinnard, we know, got dealt to Green Bay yesterday, so he's not going to be there. But yeah, I think those are I think the final two spots between what I just said, I think those are the two guys that make the final spots as the two rookies, Hinton and Cameron Williams. And then, yes, Trevor Keegan, Drew Kendall, Matt Pryor. Moving on to the defensive line. Obviously, a defensive line that lost some things in the offseason, but this defensive line is going to be good still. Obviously, you have Jalen Carter. You got Jordan Davis. You got Moro Ojomo. Ty Robinson, I think, is a guy who will stay. I think Gabe Hall will also stay. And I think Byron Young will be the final defensive lineman for the Eagles. So they'll keep 6. I think Jacob Sykes is cut. Justin Rogers is cut. Joe Evans and Jerome Robinson. I think those are the 4 guys they get rid of. I think they keep 6. Obviously, Ty Robinson, Gabe Hall, and Byron Young being on the back end of that depth chart for the defensive line on the Eagles. Moving over to the edge rushers. Obviously, Nolan Smith, Jalix Hunt, 2 guys who will be there. Joshua Uch is also obviously going to be a very key piece for this Eagles defense this year. Azeez Ojulari and Patrick Johnson. I think those are the 2 guys that stay. I can also see them keeping Agbo Akarnoku, but I think they keep 5. I don't see the reason for them to have 6 on the roster. I think 5 is okay. Obviously, you have Nolan Smith, Jalix Hunt starting. Uch, you can move around, plug him in wherever you need to, and he can be that 3rd option for them. I think they keep those 5, though. Moving to the linebacker room. We talked about Jahad Campbell a lot, the first-round pick out of Alabama. Obviously, he'll be there. Obviously, Zach Bond will be there as well. Jeremiah Trotter Jr. will still be there. And I think Smael Mondon Jr. will still be there also. Now, who is going to start is a different question for a different day. I think, like I said last episode, Jahad Campbell is turning a lot of heads for this Eagles team, this Eagles defense inside the facility. He is a guy that has impressed a lot of people. I think he's going to start at that second linebacker position, and then Jeremiah Trotter will be the 3rd option for them, and then Mondon will be the 4th option. But that's going to be your linebacker room for the Philadelphia Eagles going into this year. And then we have the cornerbacks. Cornerbacks has been a hot topic. We're still going to talk a little bit about the cornerbacks in a little bit, but here are the guys that will stay on roster for the Philadelphia Eagles. Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, Adoree Jackson, Keely Ringo, Mac McWilliams, and Jacorian Bennett. You learned, obviously, yesterday the Eagles got rid of Eli Ricks. We will talk about that in a little bit. Also, A.J. Woods, Brandon Johnson, Tariq Castro Fields, and Perry Nickerson are going to be the guys that get cut. You might see a few of them get signed practice squad-wise, but that is going to be your cornerback full room for the 2025-26 season. And then safeties. Reed Blankenship, obviously, still a guy that's going to be there. Sidney Brown, obviously a guy who's still going to be there. Andrew Makuba. Those 2 are in a battle for the other starting safety spot. And then it's going to round out with Tristan McCollum. Andre Sam, obviously Lewis Sign, we learned got cut a few days ago. And then Max and Hook are going to be the guys that the Eagles do not keep. But those 4 guys right there, Blankenship, Brown, Makuba, and McCollum, will be on roster. And then the specialists. Obviously, I mean, these are the guys who don't get enough flowers. Jake Elliott, obviously the kicker, Braden Mann, the punter, and Charlie Hewlett is going to round out your specialists for the Philadelphia Eagles. Now we are going to move on to news from yesterday. The Eagles trading for Vikings quarterback Sam Howell. The Minnesota Vikings gave up Howell and a 2026 6th-round pick for a 2026 5th-rounder and a 2027 7th-rounder. A lot of 6s and 7s there. Obviously, Howie Roseman is stacking up these 6th-round picks. Why? I don't know, but he is Howie Roseman, so you don't question him. What does this mean for the Eagles and the quarterback room? It doesn't mean much. I think it gives the Eagles comfort and stability. Obviously, McKee is a guy who is going to be the backup quarterback two for Jalen Hurts. McKee, though, a note, he got injured yesterday at practice on Monday. He hurt his finger. Now, his status is still uncertain for um, week one. We don't know if he's going to be ready to go backing up Jalen Hurts. I think part of that reason why you go get Howell is for that. You want a guy that you can count on at that third option that you're confident in. Sam Howell gives you that. Um, I mean, looking at Howell's stats, the 1 year he was a starter for NFC East rival, the Washington Commanders, he threw for 3,946 yards, 21 touchdowns, but he did throw 21 interceptions with a 63% pass completion percentage. He also led the NFL with 612 passing attempts that year. Um, I mean, this is a guy he was once viewed as a trend-setting player. He made some plays, especially the year he started with the Commanders, that showed his potential in the NFL. Bottom line, he's been transferred or he's been traded, obviously, by the Commanders, Seattle Seahawks, and now Vikings in just a year and a half. That is obviously the stain on Sam Howell's career when you look at him. But then again, he's an intriguing option for a guy you know isn't going to play that much, but he may have to see action a few games. He may, 1 or 2 games, might have to be thrown into the fire. Obviously, situations like if Hurts was to miss any games, God forbid, or you have nothing to play for, so you're just, you're not going to risk starters, So I think Sam Howell is a good option at QB3 for the Eagles. I'm excited for them. I'm excited for Sam Howell. I'm excited for that quarterback room. Kyle McCord and Dorian Thompson-Robinson were two guys that were fighting to make the roster. I think both of those guys McCord is gone. Dorian Thompson-Robinson obviously will be cut now that you go get Howell. There's no really other reason for you to go get Howell. I think if one of those guys was going to be on roster, then you wouldn't go get Howell. There would be no logic for that. But that is a little bit background on Sam Howell. He's a guy, like I said, you're not going to see him that much. Tanner McKee is proven that he is backup quarterback to Jalen Hurts, QB2. There's no doubt about that. So that's just a little bit on Sam Howell. And we are going to move on to talking back to the quarterback room. Quarterback number 2 option. Big question still. Cornerback Eli Ricks was released by the Eagles on Monday. That is the big news here. Why is this a development news-wise? Well, Ricks was one of the 5 corners, a part of that position battle for cornerback number 2. The 5 guys in that battle, like I mentioned last episode, Keely Ringo, Adoree Jackson, Jacorian Bennett, Mac McWilliams, and then obviously Ricks, but no longer on roster for the Eagles. So it comes down to Keely Ringo, Adoree Jackson, Jacorian Bennett, and Mac McWilliams. Heading into the preseason, like I said, the Eagles thought Ringo would be the guy. I've been stressing this for weeks now that everybody thought Ringo was going to be the guy. He was, kind of that next up dude for the Eagles in terms of cornerback. Everyone thought he would be, undoubtedly on the other side of Quinyon Mitchell. But Jackson and McWilliams have been taking a lot of first-team reps at practice. That points out how far Ringo's stock has fallen. I think right now Jackson, McWilliams, and Bennett are the most reliable options for that spot. Like I said, we're going to continue talking about the cornerback room and this position battle. It's a big question. You're a week away and you don't know who's going to be starting at cornerback for your defense. I think my prediction on who is going to get the nod, it'll be Adoree Jackson. He has been taking the most first-team reps for the Eagles since that first preseason game. Ringo really struggled. So that is Jackson's a guy who is a veteran. He's been in the NFL. He's been in the league. He's been around a few places. He has that experience. I think they like what they've seen from Jackson. I think, like I said, the reps is important. First team reps is very, very important. He's gotten the most of them. So that is going to be, I think, the starter here for the Eagles, not named Quinion Mitchell, is Adoree Jackson. Um, will he remain the starter? That depends on his play. I could see Ringo coming back into the mix. Like I said, that's how proven he was, and it's surprising how far his stock has fallen. But I think they go with Adoree Jackson. I think he is going to be the guy on the other side for the Eagles. Now, our last topic of the day, we're going to move into a what if, okay? I gave you guys a season prediction. We've talked about endless things on this Eagles team, offensive wise, defensive wise. We're going to go with a fun what if, and that is what if the Eagles traded for Micah Parsons? Now, obviously, this is a long shot. This is a big stretch. If you don't know, the Dallas Cowboys and Parsons have still not resolved their feud, which is getting a deal done with Parsons. Parsons wants a new deal, more money, and Jerry Jones and the Cowboys are not coughing that up. We're a week away from the season. We're actually a week away from Dallas and Philadelphia playing, opening the NFL season, regular season. And this deal has not gotten done. I'm not going to talk about if that deal gets done. We're not here to talk about the Cowboys. We're here to talk about if Micah Parsons is going to be a Philadelphia Eagle. Can Howie the Houdini pull another rabbit out of his hat? I don't know. What would that mean, though? It would mean a lot. It would mean a lot. Obviously, the Philadelphia Eagles are undoubtedly favorites heading into this year. They're Super Bowl champions. They're the defending reigning champs. They're the favorite. Getting Micah Parsons would transcend that expectation to a whole new level. But what would they have to give up? Now, they would probably have to give up a lot. I mean, Micah Parsons is an all-pro edge rusher. He's a star. Probably Jahad Campbell. Sorry, but yes. Probably Jahad Campbell. That is who I think would be. I think that'd be the key piece. Obviously, another key piece would be probably Nolan Smith or Jalix Hunt. They're gonna obviously want an edge rusher back. I mean, you're gonna give up an all-pro guy. You need an edge rusher back, and then multiple picks. A lot of second rounders would be dealt for Micah Parsons. So I think those would be the details if they were to go get Micah. Now, would the asking price be too much? Based off of what I just said, it would be a lot, but too much is an overstatement. We're talking about Micah Parsons here. Nothing is too much for Micah Parsons. Now, don't get me wrong, though. Unless they go and talk about, oh, we want Saquon or we want A.J. Brown, Devontae. Don't touch the offense, okay? I don't outside of Quinion Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, Zach Bond, I don't think there's anybody on that Eagles defense that's untouchable when you're talking about Micah Parsons. So that would the asking price be too much? I don't know. But it's Micah Parsons. Now, will the Cowboys trade him in division? That is the question to be asked. I don't think the Cowboys would, but you can never count that out with Howie Roseman in office. You never know what that man can pull off. That's just a fun what if. That is all we have for you today. As always, like, comment, and subscribe, and stay up to date with Eagles' latest on Fan Arch.